So the most common gun, the most prevalent gun, and I'm talking globally as in all over the world, is probably not the one you assume it is. Guys, welcome to the channel, and I thought about talking about this topic based on my experience having seen different parts of the world and living in some as well, and especially being involved in the gun community in these places. And I have a pretty definite answer regarding what is most likely to cross your path, especially when you're looking at something that you may end up using for self-defense, for security, for keeping your family and your community protected from any danger using firearms in that case. Now, if you go by the numbers and you just Google most common guns, well, number one is no question AK. AK-47, AK variant of one way or one sort of another. And that is very much the case. I don't doubt it much. Now, there is quite a discrepancy between the numbers, and a lot of this is related to Russia and China, countries that are known to say one thing when actually reality is something else. And this also goes to their stockpiles of weapons. We saw this with even uniforms. They lied about having millions of uniforms ready in case of war, and they were nowhere to be found. So a lot of that has probably changed hands, has been duplicated, triplicated, and quadruplicated, sold time and time and again, and it's just a note in a piece of paper when the stockpile is not actually there. I safely assume that for a large percentage. Still, I'm pretty sure that yes, in terms of total production, I would put AK on the top. Then you have the Mauser rifles or the Mustang Nagats. Again, similar thing. In the case of the older Mauser rifles, the 98K, is it? A lot of these have been sold, again, in a number of ways all over the world. In Argentina, it was fairly common to just buy one of those and sporterize. You're probably familiar with the idea of sporterizing a rifle. How many of those things got destroyed and converted into something that is, gathering rust in some closet somewhere, right? I bet it's a lot of them. And then as you continue down the line of some of the more popular models, you see your AR-15. Glock is surprisingly high as well. Maybe not that much of a surprise. It's interesting that there's not a perfectly clear number of how many Glock pistols there are. Especially given that it's a fairly modernly built firearm. You're not talking about a Mustang Nagant made in the former Soviet Union, right? And yet there's not always that clear idea of how many, that clear number of, yes, this is exactly how much there is out there. And then there's also the case of that information maybe not being as relevant for you, given that if there's, I don't know, let's say 10 million ARs all over the world. How many of those are stocked up in military bases, in armories? So that is also a number that you have to keep in mind or consider when thinking, okay, what is the likeliness of me coming across one thing or the other? If you keep on going down that list, I think the Marlin 65 and 22 long rifle, very common too, and the one you see there, the Mossberg 500, also the Remington 870, about the same number of units produced. But in my experience, the gun, and I'm talking about a gun that's like fairly standardized. Like, I know what it is. I know how to pull it apart, replace, fix, and the kind of thing that I think is necessary just to say, yes, this is a gun that I can work with. I can replace, fix, tweak stuff that broke, or that would be the Mossberg 500. Remington 870 tends to be a little bit more expensive, so that's why maybe it's a bit more commonly found in US and in other parts of the world. I see it all over the place as well, so the 870 would also be in that place. But yeah, I would say that anywhere in the world where there is some kind of right to own a firearm, that's something fairly common. So yeah, going back to this thing of, well, how many AKs have been produced? All right, how many of them are stockpiled in bunkers in Russia and China? Half of them, is it? Okay, so that changes things a bit. And then you add the legislation to make things more complicated, like in the case of the AR. the AR semi-automatic rifle or shorter carabine like the one you see there, well, there's usually going to be some legal restrictions. Not every country allows the same kind of guns, and it's usually the case that box-fed semi-automatic rifles tend to be a little bit more restricted. Even in the United States, that gun with a 14.5-inch barrel will face restrictions that the longer version of the gun will not. So these are all things that affect the likeliness of what I'm going for here, which is opening a closet, opening a gun vault, and finding a gun. What gun is it that you're kind of most likely to find? There's also a ton of double-barrel shotguns, but maybe not nearly as much as you would have assumed. They have become a little bit more of a premium item. Some of them are quite expensive. The manufacturing process, especially the welding of the two barrels, it is a bit of an art form of its own. And yeah, I mean, there's parts of the world in which are just being destroyed because of change of culture, because of all of the people that use them for hunting are no longer here anymore. And they just fall in the hands of their kids and grandkids. And what am I going to do with this? I don't even like guns. I'm voting for Joe Biden in the next election, right? So there's a lot of that going on, and they just turn it over to a gun store, and the gun store says, I have no room for these things anymore, and they just end up either stripping them, selling them, but selling them to whom? No one wants to buy them. They want to get something else, especially if someone is still interested in guns. It's likely not going to be the case that, yeah, I want to buy an old double-barrel shotgun, right? Even though for us more gun-nutty people, we love all forms of guns, it's not the case for everyone. But I want to go back to this idea of if you are anywhere, right? This is the gun. This is the gun that it has a series of advantages and a number of limitations as well. I mean, I have two of them, and I've owned a number of them over the years in different countries. That says quite a bit. Yeah, I would say that along with Glock, that would be one of the more, I drop somewhere, get my permit, license, or whatever it is that I need or don't need, and you walk into a gun store, and with a handful of paper money, you buy something. This is likely going to be the case. This gun, this is from England. This is UK sold gun. It's a pump-action shotgun. It's a pump-action Mossberg 500, but it has the longer 24-inch barrel that makes it legal in UK, right? If you have the right shotgun license and so on. I mean, these are great guns, man. I don't need to tell you how useful, especially in the survival and prepper community, the idea of a pump-action shotgun is as staple firearm as it gets. A number of shells that you can fire from them. I tend to favor, as you see, having sights. I'm not a great shot. I would be more of an average shot, a little bit of competition here and there. But, I mean, and even I can land a nice shot at 50 meters or even more with slugs on these things. That one over there with that long barrel, I don't know what it is about it, but it just lands one on top of the other at a significant distance. Super accurate with slugs. With your traditional Foster slugs, not a rifle barrel or anything like that. No, not trying to squeeze every millimeter of accuracy out of it. No, just long barrel, long sight distance, and it just does its thing. Even if it's not a rifle, it can be surprisingly accurate. Most people assume that a shotgun is, it's just raining lead down a hallway and hitting several people at the same time. You probably understand that's more of a fantasy than anything else. Even with a cylinder choke shooting buckshot, you're maybe gonna hit, if lucky, you're gonna be hitting poorly on a couple of those instead of raining lead on a number of half a dozen people. That's not how these things work. But they're tremendously powerful, very effective when that shot lands where it's supposed to, especially buckshot. Man, you do not want to get hit with 12 gauge buckshot. It is tremendously effective, and it's a simple mechanism. I mean, all things you probably understand already. It can be used for hunting, it can be used for defense, And then you have the other aspect of it, which is it involves a mechanical working of the action, which in a very close range combat situation and someone on top of you, it can be an impediment. It can be a problem. Usually when I think shotguns, I favor semi-automatic ones. The ammunition capacity is going to be a little bit lower. And for home defense, that's usually not a problem, especially given how effective these things are. Every shell of buckshot is going to be landing 9 rounds at the same time. So multiply that by the amount of shells that you have, 5, 6, 7, right? Depending on how long the tubular magazine is. You have a decent amount. I don't remember last time I heard of someone defending themselves with a pump action shotgun saying, "Oh yes, I didn't make it," or someone reporting that guy didn't make it because he just ran out of ammunition. Especially with a shotgun, first blast most likely sends everyone running, and if they're still around, the next couple blasts will probably get the job done. So yeah, I don't want to make the video super long, but this is maybe one of the staples that if you want to go beyond, right, the typical core setup of weapons that you have, which is going to be a semi-automatic pistol, semi-automatic carbine of some sort, AK, AR, something along those lines, usually AR in most of the Western world these days. And you want to keep on adding the just-in-case gun, or just arming my neighbors, or end-of-the-world stuff, and I want to buy 4, 5, 6 of these things, depending on when I come across them at a good price. I mean, man, I picked some of these for $250. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the one on top. And this is a fine-looking shotgun. Nice wood, good barrel length for that. For the sight there. I think it was $250. If I remember correctly, it had the safety was broken, and that was why the guy was dropping some money out of it. But again, if you know how to work with these things, it's no problem at all to just pull it apart very quickly, get the parts for it. Another aspect, how easy is it for you to get parts for a certain gun? I'm telling you right now, yes, AR, super common, Glock, super common all over the world, but try getting a little bit more rare than that top 10 most common guns. It's going to be getting a little bit tricky. It's not always the case that you find everything you need. Monster 500, you will no matter where you are on the planet, if it's some kind of right to have guns of some sort, you will find parts for this thing as well. And that makes all the difference in the world between having a gun that doesn't work and one that is functional. So guys, that's gonna be all for now. If you want to learn more about my take on survival preparedness, especially the economic survival stuff, you have that covered in Surviving the Economic Collapse, and the practical aspects of self-defense, survival, a lot of the use of firearms for self-defense and so on, street survival skills, both available in the links there below. Take care, have an awesome day.